Northern Gateway Pipeline, cancelled. Energy East Pipeline, cancelled. New oil sands expansions, cancelled. Hundreds of billions in investment capital for new ports, pipelines, and projects, all gone.
Donald Trump is renewing the call to build the Keystone XL pipeline. Cam, Alberta's premier, says she's on board.
Tara, Danielle Smith jumped in right away to support U.S. President Trump's call to resurrect the defunct project. Taking to social media, President Trump called on Calgary-based TC Energy, well, not by name, or another company to return to the U.S. to finish the pipeline that would bring Alberta oil to U.S. refineries. Trump said under his watch, Keystone XL would acquire easy regulatory approvals and an almost immediate start. Danielle Smith took to X to say this project should have never been shelved. Lower costs for American families is a big win.
Here's the thing I find irritating about Eastern politicians. The reason I find it irritating is because we could have had Energy East, which would have expanded our ability to support our friends in Eastern Canada and also been an export market off the East Coast. We could have had Northern Gateway, which would have expanded and supported export markets in a more substantial way off the West Coast. And Eastern politicians advocated against those things. And so we went to work on expanding our access to the United States.
Looks like the gloves are off. The neglect and sabotage of Alberta and Saskatchewan by Eastern politicians will not be tolerated by Westerners anymore. And this is the hill they're ready to die on. I don't believe Canada will come out of this crisis united. Wexit is only gaining in support, and the prairies are ready to separate and leave the Canadian socialist experiment behind. Danielle Smith isn't exactly whispering anymore. She's drawn a line in the sand. She went straight after the Eastern politicians whose so-called green policies have bled Alberta's energy industry of billions. Smith reminded Ottawa that Alberta isn't here to play doormat anymore. Respect, she says, is no longer optional. And she ain't alone. Saskatchewan's Scott Moe also made it crystal clear. His province isn't about to keep propping up a broken, lopsided system that favors the East at the West's expense. Looks like the prairie premiers have finally found their spines. Let's dive in. If you support these videos, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it.
Which is why Albertans call it an oil and gas production cap. The funny thing about this particular emissions cap, it wasn't imposed on any other type of production, not on the production of cement, or steel, or aluminum, or any other product mined or manufactured in Canada. No, the cap was placed on just one single sector, oil and gas. You can probably understand why Albertans are mighty unhappy about that. The Conference Board of Canada just released a report concluding that this cap will cost the Alberta economy roughly $1 trillion in lost GDP, 150,000 jobs, and $200 billion in provincial revenues by 2050. And the Canadian economy stands to lose even more. The results of these federal anti-energy laws have already been catastrophic to the Canadian economy and our investment reputation around the world. Northern Gateway Pipeline, cancelled. Energy East Pipeline, cancelled. New oil sands expansions, cancelled. Hundreds of billions in investment capital for new ports, pipelines, and projects, all gone to the United States, the Middle East, and anywhere else but here. It's so bad, in fact, that in order to complete the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion to Vancouver, Ottawa had to step in and buy the project from a private company that lost billions trying to navigate through all this government red tape and ended up spending tens of billions of dollars more than initially budgeted due to cost overruns caused by their very own anti-energy legislation. We should all be glad it was finally built, but it should have been the private sector who built it. In any event, all of these laws combined constituted one of the greatest acts of national economic self-harm in our nation's history. No other nation would ever think to phase out its most valuable assets worth tens of trillions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of jobs for its people. That would be utterly self-destructive. And yet, that is exactly what Canada has done to itself.
More and more Albertans and Westerners in general have figured it out. Canada's house is a mess and no one's coming to fix it. An Alberta and Saskatchewan alliance? Now that could be a powerhouse. Energy rich, economically strong, and standing tall in the world. Add in the United States factor. President Trump has openly talked about unleashing Western energy for North America's benefit, and even voiced support for Western self-determination. That's not exactly small talk. Texas once did something very similar. First, they became independent, and then they chose to join the United States. The parallels are impossible to ignore.
You've also said that you want a pipeline to be in the first wave of the fast-track national projects. The focus right now is getting C5 to work by building the social license, particularly with the national Indigenous groups. That seems to be the focus rather than changing the regulations. It may be the first wave of projects comes out before they do anything with the regulations. Can you live with that? Because I know this has been a real political flashpoint between you and the federal government. And I, based on what they say about wanting projects that are high chance of success and lots of support, I don't know if a pipeline is going to get there by the fall when it starts.
I can tell you that Alberta, as the owner of the resource, we can be one of the guaranteed shippers on that line.
Sure.
And that's what we did an announcement with Enbridge in January, saying that we're prepared to do that. And we are prepared to do that. And so if we have to help to underwrite a proposal in that way by guaranteeing barrels so that others in the industry are able to have the confidence, that's normally the way pipelines get built, is they line up the producers first. And so the problem that we have is that the producers aren't going to line up as long as there's an emissions cap that would require them to curtail their
So
production.
the sequencing, though, becomes a problem, right, for you and to meet the demands of the letter you sent.
Which is why I'm asking for those 9 bad laws to be either substantially modified or repealed.
I like pipelines, and pipelines in every direction are good things, and I'm glad to see the Americans see how important Alberta and our economy, especially the energy industry, is to the United States.
The Premier of Alberta isn't just talking tough. She's playing chess. She set down a list of demands to Ottawa, knowing full well that the federal Liberals will never deliver. At the same time, she's out hosting town halls, rallying Albertans to the idea of real independence. And when, inevitably, those demands are not met, she'll have the perfect case. Confederation cannot be salvaged, and Alberta deserves to chart its own course. Looks like she's building a roadmap to freedom, one broken liberal promise at a time. Hey, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to be notified every time a new video is published, hit the subscribe button and activate the notifications bell. It's completely free and it helps our channel grow. A heartfelt thank you to all our channel members. I really appreciate your support. See you all in the next one. Peace.